Good morning. Hi. Welcome to Vantage Point, Change Now, Part 2. I'm Kathleen Taylor, and I'm the clinical social worker in the medical center providing mental health services, and I'm your co-host today. The show today is going to be a continuation of the show we did last time, which is talking about how we adjust to change in the time of the coronavirus. This show is also the second time that we have been venturing into virtual co-hosting. And you notice my usual co-host, Marcia Boyles, is not here next to me, but she is here virtually, and I think she will show up momentarily. Hey, Marcia, are you there?
Good morning. I am here.
Good morning.
This has become our new norm.
Well, I don't know. I don't like the term new normal when it comes to things I don't like, so.
I see. So I would agree. It's not quite the same.
No, but I have to admit, we agreed it was kind of fun last time, and it's definitely getting easier, so that's good. That shows how adaptable we are.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking a lot, using your survey that you did, to talk a lot about how people are adapting to the changes that they're experiencing, specifically related to social distancing. Is that right?
That's correct. Just the whole issue of isolation and how folks are dealing with it. Mm-hmm. My objective here, having done a totally unscientific survey and gotten 30 responses from residents, is to, number one, let folks know what their neighbors are doing in the way of coping strategies, mm-hmm. but also to provide some suggestions and hints that any of us might adapt or adopt as a strategy. And there were some wonderful suggestions, that I will share some of them at least with you this morning.
Right.
And I think other folks may benefit from these, or at least I would hope so.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you wanted to mention too what we were absolutely astounded about, which is the amount of YouTube views that we had for our last show.
Yes, indeed. We've had almost 200, I think, at this point on YouTube. And the other thing is the phone calls and the emails that both of us have received in support and appreciation of the program. So that certainly has provided a real incentive for us, Kathleen, to continue this show.
Yeah. I mean, we were definitely happy to see that people were finding it valuable, or at least worthwhile, to be able to hear what we were talking about. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, we should also point out that you're going to be talking today about the emotional health aspects of self-isolating.
That's right. So to begin, I think I was just going to give a little bit of a recap of what we talked about last time, just to give a sort of a foundation for the discussion that we're going to continue with. So as I've said, this whole event that's occurring right now has really activated our survival response, or our fight or flight, stress reaction, all of the above. What that is our body's hardwired reaction when we perceive a threat or we feel that we're in danger. Now that response was meant to be very short-lived. It was meant to help us in an immediate danger when something is coming at us in some kind of way that we have to either run away from or fight off. And then that reaction would be done. We would be, hopefully have survived, and the response would have an ending. With the kind of danger or threat that we're dealing with now with the coronavirus, that is not time limited. It has no ending, in terms of what we know right now. So as a reaction, this is not going to be an effective way. It's not sustainable, and it can create a lot of stress overload that will have wear and tear on our bodies, also wear and tear on our emotions and on our cognition. So we really have to be able to think about how to adapt our response, regulate our response, in order to be able to not have the negative effects of the stress overload and to be able to continue to function in a healthy way. I think one of the interesting things that I didn't talk about last time so much was that when we are in a stress reaction, we are hypersensitive, hypervigilant for sure, always kind of on the lookout for things that might harm us, but also hypersensitive to the things and that might cause us harm. And in this case, I'm talking about the emotional things that might cause us harm. We carry with us from all of the experiences that we've had in our lives, experiences that have been impactful and formative to us and to the way that we see the world. And those experiences are sort of within us, sort of waiting like little time bombs really to be activated when something happens that threatens us. And people might have heard the term hot button, or have someone say, oh, that experience triggered me in some kind of way. What they're referring to is the fact that some experience right now caused them to kind of react or relive based on an experience that they had in their past. And that's an emotional reaction. So all of that to say that every experience that we've had on our life means something to us. And that meaning is what is stored inside of us. An example is you go to a party and you have a great time. So that experience is stored, and you like parties. You go to parties, you like parties. Parties don't make you anxious. The opposite of that is you go to a party and you have a horrible experience, and that experience gets stored in you as well, and you start to feel anxious about going to parties. You have a negative feeling about that. It feels scary to you. So those are the kinds of experiences that can get triggered, over and over and over again, depending on what kind of experience you're having in your real-time life. So I think that since we're talking about social distancing, we can talk a little bit about what experiences people may have had that they've sort of stored inside of them that might be activated or triggered by the necessity right now of social distancing. So what does social distancing mean to us? So in our rational minds, when we're not activated or under the effects of the stress reaction, we know that social distancing is necessary. It's essential to everybody's well-being, to ours and all of our loved ones. But inside of us, we might be reacting emotionally, and that's sort of what happens when we're under stress, is that we react emotionally, not rationally. So the feelings that we might be having are, this is horrible. What am I going to do without being able to see my friends or my family? This is scary. This is not right. What's happening with the world? The whole world feels like it's potentially collapsing because you just don't have those relationships that have anchored you in your life. So that's kind of an example of how something that we're experiencing right now can trigger a layer of stress, threat, that is more emotional than physical. So there's multiple layers of stress that we're experiencing right now, and that is why I'll say again that we really have to be very thoughtful and intentional about our awareness of how we're feeling, so that we kind of understand that we might be experiencing these irrational, emotional activations of previous experiences that are negative, and that we need to find out ways to calm that response down and replace that response with a constructive, functional reaction. And that's what we're going to be talking about today in terms of social distancing, is ways that people have begun to respond intentionally and constructively that allow them to still feel that connection with other people, that important connection, but maintain, you know, the requirements of social distance.
All right, I think that was well put, Kathleen. Certainly, the major response that we got in terms of the surveys was that there was a tremendous need to communicate with friends and family and neighbors via some mode or another. I mean, clearly we can't be doing this face to face, but devising ways to communicate, and a lot of communication. So obviously the most, the easiest is telephone, computer, emails, and texting. But in addition to that, people are finding new ways of communicating, and primarily just exactly what we're using here this morning that allows me to be seen in my apartment while you're in the studio. Friends and families are communicating via Zoom, which is what we're using today, which allows a number of different participants, not just one, and others like FaceTime that does allow face-to-face communication on Apple computers, and there are other apps as well. So we're seeing people becoming quite inventive about using these new technologies. My own experience in talking to family members on Zoom is that it really gives a much greater sense of immediacy, of intimacy, of better communication than just a telephone, and certainly better than emails or texting. So that, again, I think is probably the primary thing that folks are doing differently now. They are using these new methods. Some families are having cocktail hour together every day. Kids, grandkids, residents. One of the residents reported that she had a birthday party on Zoom. Another resident indicated that she had a dinner group that she ate with every week, inside Green Spring folks and outside, and that they were having dinner parties, continued to have dinner parties on Zoom. One of the also, I think, quite inventive ways of using Zoom is with choral groups. The barbershop quartet groups are singing together on Zoom. Some of the church choirs, choruses, are also singing together on Zoom. Kathleen, I've also been meaning to ask you, are you seeing residents via Zoom or FaceTime?
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that has changed for us as well, since we have to, be social distanced too, that we're using telehealth, and which is, our ability to do our therapy sessions via the phone, FaceTime. Those are the two primary ones that I'm using, and that I think, though initially everybody was a little uncertain about how that was going to go, it's going really, really well. I have to give Medicare credit. Medicare and Medicaid, the regulations have been loosened, so that previously telehealth for therapy was acceptable, but it had to be with video and audio. And since they've recognized that people may not have access to that technology, or it might not be comfortable for some people, that the primary goal is to allow people to be able to continue to have that therapeutic support. So that's, Ashley and I are both doing our visits via telehealth right now.
All right, but people can also do it just by phone, is what you're saying.
Yep, and people are choosing to do that.
And that seems to work pretty well for a number of people.
Yeah, everybody that's doing it seems to be doing all right. So, that's another example for me of how adaptable people can be. I'm happy about that. I include myself in that because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, but it ends up being a really okay thing.
I think most of us have gotten emails from practically every physician we've ever visited indicating that they are doing this as well in terms of appointments now.
Yes, all of our physicians in the medical center are doing it as well. So, yeah, it's great. It's great. I wanted to just add to what you were saying about all of the creative ways that people are choosing to get in contact with friends and family. It made me think that, when we start to think about losing something, it becomes, that much more valuable to us. So whereas before we might have taken for granted our relationships with our friends and our family, all of a sudden we're like, oh, we really want to figure out how to keep in touch. So I'm hoping that some of these ways that people have developed to stay in contact that sounds so kind of cool, that they will continue to use when the coronavirus is gone, because they sound like really, really very fun ways to talk to people.
Yes, I think that's right, and I think once we've done the technology of it, that we probably all will continue to use it.
Yeah, it got people over the hump a little bit with the technology.
It absolutely did, and I think you're right. I think folks are really staying in very close communication, I think, mostly with their families. One resident here told me that her two sons had, quote, divided her up. And I said, what did that mean? And she said, one calls me on days with a U in it, and the other calls me on the other days.
Good one.
So, which I thought was kind of cute. One of the areas of communication that I frankly would not have thought about, one of the residents, and this is a sort of backward-looking communication, this is maybe a good time to be going on Ancestry.com or a new site that I had not heard of before called Family Search, all one word, FamilySearch.org. And FamilySearch.org will help you build free, I might add, will help you build a family tree. And it occurred to me that all of us, and probably at some point or another, have had relatives, or maybe we've done it ourselves, who have done some ancestral work and family tree work, and then sent it to far-flung cousins. And it's a great thing to communicate with other members of the family. I've had two cousins that have done that in the past, and it was most welcome, things I had never known. So that's a kind of backward-looking, but I think quite interesting way to spend some time is to search out your family tree. Another aspect of communication, of course, is writing. And letter writing is fairly passé these days. I don't think most of us do much of it, but maybe this is a good time to be writing some letters. But I think mostly what I'm hearing from residents is that they're doing things like journaling. One resident told me that she was journaling every day now since the middle of March, journaling her experience through this epidemic, thinking that this might be of interest to her far-flung children and their offspring as time goes on. And I thought that was a very interesting approach. One of the residents who responded is writing the story of his life, and he made a suggestion that I thought was a good one. He said, go back and remember stories of your life, just a paragraph, but write a paragraph every day if you can. Just things that you remember about your past, to write them. I have been teaching memoir writing here for about 10 years and have had a number of classes, and it occurs to me that if this epidemic and social isolation goes on much longer, I would think seriously about teaching a memoir class on Zoom. I think it would work very well. And anybody that's interested, you might just let me know. One of the respondents indicated that she was sending jokes or funny pictures and posting them on Facebook or sending them via email to friends and family. I know every day I get 2 or 3 jokes from folks. I think probably we're all doing that at this point. Now, 2 things that I think I would like to, 2 ideas I would like to leave folks with. The first is that if you have a patio or, let me just stop and say something about communicating with animals. Those of you who are lucky enough to have pets, I think they are particularly valuable right now, cats, dogs, whatever. And I am finding myself communicating now with ravens. I'm on the back of Canterbury. I have a patio on the back of Canterbury Square, and there are about a half a dozen ravens back here, huge, big blackbirds, who are extremely social and extremely smart. And they are very loud, and they have a lot of different inflections and cadences. They're clearly communicating. And I have gotten so when I sit outside on my patio now, I am mimicking their sounds, and I know we're communicating. I'm a little concerned about what the neighbors may be thinking about. Maybe this lady has gone, a little over the edge, but it is a form of communication, and I'm enjoying it. What I was going to say was that in addition to communicating however you can, there are a couple of things that I think may raise the spirits of folks. Firstly, if you have a patio or have a garden or even a sunny windowsill, I would suggest you might want to go on the Burpee, B-U-R-P-E-E, the Burpee website. They sell seeds and they sell plants, and they will send them to you, and they're quite pristine from Burpee. So you might want to just think about planting a few flowers. And the other aspect of this is that I think Echo, the Amazon Echo, is a great source of information. She's almost company. You can ask her what the weather is today. You can ask her what the weather is in Chicago or wherever you want to know. She'll tell you the meaning of words, the pronunciation of words, and any fact that honestly you could even imagine you might want to know. So she really is very good company, Alexa is. The one downside to getting an Echo, and they're inexpensive at this point, is that they're difficult to program. So unless you're fairly good at using your smartphone to program other things, don't think about an Echo. But if you could do it, they really are a good company. So I think, Kathleen, with that, I will turn it back to you. And hope that some of these suggestions will be helpful.
Yeah, I absolutely think that they will be, for sure. I think that people are going to, continue to think of new and creative ways to be able to meet their need for that social connection. What I would say is pace yourself. I think that I don't know that we're prepared for how long this might continue. So I think that we need to think about, that we're in it for the long haul, and that we are going to be okay for sure. And this is not forever, but in the meantime, I think slow and steady wins the race, right? You know, that we're gonna be okay, that we're gonna adapt to this, we're gonna be more resilient, we're gonna come away from it definitely stronger, and with a sense of maybe renewed connection to people that we care about. You know, since we have sort of felt the fact that we feel their loss at this point in time. So I'm very hopeful in the midst of all of this that we're gonna be okay.